The first mistake is to treat a UAP report like a verdict. A pilot sees a light. A sensor tracks a shape. A file is opened, classified, declassified, argued over, clipped into a video, and passed through the internet until one small question becomes a much larger one: what did we actually learn? In the popular version, there are only two doors. Behind one door is belief. Behind the other is denial. But the official record does not fit either door neatly. It is colder, stranger, and more useful than that. It is a record of trained witnesses who sometimes saw things they could not identify. It is also a record of missing range data, bad angles, sensor glare, delayed reporting, balloons, birds, drones, aircraft, satellites, and cases that do not collapse into a clean answer. So tonight the Dragalion archive does not ask whether every story is true or false. It asks a sharper question. When the United States government, NASA, and AARO publish UAP reports, what do those reports actually prove? Not what do they suggest on a late-night screen. Not what do we want them to mean. What can the evidence carry, and where does it break? The older word was UFO, unidentified flying object. The newer public language is UAP, first usually expanded as unidentified aerial phenomena, later widened in federal use to unidentified anomalous phenomena. That shift matters. It is an attempt to move the subject away from one image, the flying saucer, and toward a category of observations that may occur in air, space, or other domains and may have more than one explanation. But a new acronym does not magically create better evidence. It creates a better container. A UAP report begins with non-identification. That is the minimum claim. Something was observed, and the observer or reporting system could not immediately classify it as a known aircraft, known natural phenomenon, or known object. That is not nothing. In aviation and defense, unidentified traffic can matter even when it turns out to be mundane. A near miss with a drone is still a safety issue. A sensor false alarm can still expose a weakness in how data is interpreted. The 2021 ODNI preliminary assessment made that distinction visible. It did not declare one answer. It said the available reporting was limited, inconsistent, and often lacked the specificity needed for firm conclusions. It also said many reports probably represented physical objects because they appeared across multiple kinds of observation, including radar, infrared, electro-optical systems, weapon seekers, and visual sightings. That sentence is often treated as the dramatic part. The quieter part is just as important. Physical object does not mean extraordinary object. An object can be real and still be misunderstood. A balloon is real. A drone is real. A bird crossing a sensor field is real. A distant aircraft seen from an unusual angle is real. A satellite flare is real. A reflection, glare pattern, or compression artifact can create a real image on a screen while misleading the human who reads it. The UAP record begins in that tension. Many reports are not imaginary, but the meaning attached to them can outrun the data. A good UAP report can establish that an event was reported through an official channel. It can establish time, location, altitude estimate, witness role, sensor platform, and whether any supporting data exists. It can establish that air crews, commercial pilots, military personnel, or observers considered the event unusual enough to preserve. It can also establish what investigators checked afterward: flight tracks, satellite passes, weather, known exercises, adversarial systems, and domestic programs. That is evidence, but it is not all the same kind of evidence. A pilot's testimony is not the same as calibrated multi-sensor data. A video clip is not the same as the full platform telemetry. A radar return without context is not the same as a reconstructed flight path. A still image can tell us that something appeared in frame, while saying little about distance, size, speed, or behavior. In UAP analysis, those missing variables are not minor details. They are often the entire mystery. This is why official UAP work keeps returning to the same problem, not mystery as entertainment, but mystery as a data quality failure. The question is not only, what was the object? The question is, what would we need to know to identify it? That second question changes the whole story. It turns a strange light from a symbol into a measurement problem. The 2021 ODNI assessment covered a dataset that was mostly U.S. government reporting from 2004 to March 2021. It described 144 reports from government sources, with 80 involving observation through multiple sensors. Only one object was identified with high confidence in that public assessment, a large deflating balloon. The other reports remained unexplained at that stage. For believers, the unresolved count looked like a door opening. For skeptics, it looked like a poorly built dataset. The actual report was more careful than both reactions. It said limited data and inconsistent reporting made evaluation difficult. It said unusual apparent flight characteristics could result from sensor errors, spoofing, or observer misperception and needed rigorous analysis. It also gave a 5-part framework for possible explanations: airborne clutter, natural atmospheric phenomena, U.S. government or industry development programs, foreign adversary systems, and an other category. That framework is the spine of the whole subject. It means that an unresolved UAP is not one mystery with one likely answer. It may be a pile of different events that only look connected because humans grouped them under one label. Some may be balloons. Some may be drones. Some may be aircraft or satellites. Some may be sensor artifacts. Some may involve foreign surveillance or domestic classified activity. Some may remain open because the record is too incomplete to close. Notice what that does not do. It does not make every unresolved case exotic. It also does not make every witness careless. It says the evidence is not strong enough to sort the full set. That is an unsatisfying answer, but it is a disciplined one. In serious investigation, unidentified is not a conclusion. It is a temporary status that should survive only until enough information changes it. AARO, the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, was created to centralize and standardize the U.S. government's UAP work. By the time of the FY23 and FY24 consolidated reports, the public record had changed in one major way: reporting volume was growing. The FY23 report covered 291 UAP reports for its period and earlier unreported events. The FY24 report covered 757 reports received during its window and backlog, including 485 incidents from the reporting period and 272 older incidents that had not been included earlier. More reports can sound like more mystery, but reporting volume is not the same as phenomenon volume. If you build a better reporting pipeline, lower stigma, add civil aviation logs, and invite more observers, the number should rise. The archive is measuring the sky, but it is also measuring institutions learning how to file what they see. The FY24 report is especially useful because it turns the drama into numbers. AARO received 757 reports. It resolved 118 during the reporting period to prosaic objects such as balloons, birds, and unmanned aerial systems. It later finalized an additional 174 queued cases as prosaic objects including balloons, birds, unmanned aerial systems, satellites, and aircraft. It said 21 cases merited further analysis by intelligence and science partners. It placed 444 in an active archive because they lacked enough data for analysis. Those numbers do not close the subject. They do something subtler. They show that a large share of cases can move from mystery to ordinary explanation when enough data is available. They also show that a large unresolved archive can exist for a boring reason, insufficient information. The unsolved file is not automatically a secret. Sometimes it is an empty space where measurement should have been. The reports also show collection bias. UAP reporting is not a neutral scan of the whole planet. It is shaped by where sensors are, where military assets operate, where pilots report, where reporting forms exist, and where institutions decide to preserve data. The FY23 report described a bias toward restricted military airspace, softened somewhat by commercial pilot reporting. The FY24 report noted hotspots near U.S. military assets and sensors operating globally. This matters because maps can deceive. A cluster of reports near a training range may mean something is happening there. It may also mean that capable observers, radar, infrared cameras, mission logs, and formal reporting channels overlap there. The map may show data collection as much as unusual events. When viewers see a chart, they want it to mean the sky is revealing a pattern. Sometimes it is. But a serious reading asks first what produced the chart. Who could report? What sensors were active? What definitions were used? How many cases lacked altitude, range, or size? A reporting trend is evidence about reports before it is evidence about the world. The most useful public case files are not always the most mysterious ones. They are the cases where AARO or partner analysts show how an apparently strange event can shrink under reconstruction. That does not make the report worthless. It makes it valuable. It teaches the viewer what can go wrong between an object, a sensor, and a conclusion. In the Puerto Rico case, an infrared sensor on a Customs and Border Protection aircraft captured footage near Aguadilla in 2013. The popular reading was dramatic: a fast object, apparently splitting, apparently entering and exiting the water. AARO's case resolution summary says the objects did not demonstrate anomalous speeds or flight behavior. A reconstruction indicated that two objects were traveling near each other, not one object splitting, and that they moved in a straight line at wind speed without entering the water. In the Al-Taqaddum case, an infrared sensor aboard an aerostat recorded more than 17 minutes of an unidentified object over Iraq in 2017. AARO assessed with high confidence that the object did not show anomalous behavior or capabilities and was consistent with a cluster of fully and partially inflated balloons. Again, the lesson is not that witnesses are foolish. The lesson is that distance, heat signatures, wind, camera angle, and expectation can combine into a compelling image. Go Fast offers a similar warning. A Navy pilot recorded an object with a forward-looking infrared sensor over the Atlantic. The clip looks fast to many viewers because the object appears to race above the water. But apparent speed in a moving camera system can be a geometry trap. If the object is higher than it seems, and the aircraft is moving fast, parallax can make a slower object look dramatic. A good reconstruction can turn impossible speed into misread distance. The public argument is not only about recent videos. It is also about history: Project Sign, Project Grudge, Project Blue Book, older Air Force investigations, classified programs, rumors of retrievals, and claims that government offices have hidden non-human technology. This is where the story becomes emotionally charged, because secrecy is real in national security. Classified programs exist. Advanced aircraft have been hidden. Officials have sometimes communicated badly or incompletely. But secrecy by itself is not evidence for the most extreme claim. The 2024 AARO Historical Record Report reviewed U.S. government involvement with UAP from 1945 onward, including archives, programs, panels, and interviews. Its public conclusion was direct. AARO found no empirical evidence that any U.S. government investigation, academic-sponsored research, or official review panel confirmed that a UAP sighting represented extraterrestrial technology. It also found no empirical evidence for claims that the government or private companies possessed hidden off-world technology. That conclusion will not satisfy everyone. Some will say the best evidence would remain classified. Others will question AARO's access. Those are fair questions about scope and trust, but they are not evidence. A gap in public knowledge can justify oversight. It cannot carry the most extreme conclusion by itself. NASA entered the public UAP discussion from a different angle. Its independent study team was not an intelligence office and did not claim to solve classified cases. It asked what a scientific agency could contribute. The answer was not a new mythology. It was better data, better standards, better tools, and a more open process. NASA's public page frames UAP as observations in the sky that cannot be identified as aircraft or known natural phenomena. The final report, released in September 2023, focused on how available data could be synthesized, what new data could be collected, what analysis methods might help, and how NASA's culture of transparency and scientific integrity could support future work. That matters because the subject has a stigma problem. If witnesses fear ridicule, reports vanish. If reports are too vague, science cannot use them. NASA's role is also a guardrail. The agency searches for life in the universe, studies planets, operates observatories, and builds instruments. If NASA says there is more to learn about UAP, that is not the same as saying the answer is extraterrestrial. The scientific answer to a poor dataset is not a louder conclusion. It is a better dataset. So what do UAP reports actually prove? First, they prove that some observations are operationally important even before they are explained. A pilot does not need to know whether an object is a balloon, drone, aircraft, or sensor artifact to report a safety hazard. A defense office does not need an exotic hypothesis to care about unidentified activity near restricted airspace, military operating areas, or sensitive infrastructure. Second, they prove that unresolved is a weak word if we do not ask why it is unresolved. Some cases remain open because they are genuinely puzzling after review. Some remain open because there is not enough information to test. Some are placed in active archives because a future pattern may emerge. Those categories should not be blended into one dramatic pile. Third, they prove that many cases become less strange when analysts obtain context. A report can begin as an orb, triangle, fast object, or strange light and end as a balloon cluster, satellite flare, aircraft, bird, UAS, or geometry effect. That does not embarrass the archive. It strengthens it. A system that can close cases is a system learning to separate signal from noise. Fourth, they prove that public trust is part of the evidence problem. When data is classified, late, incomplete, or hard to interpret, people fill the gap with stories. Some stories are harmless curiosity. Some become fixed beliefs. Better reporting, declassification, and clear case resolution work do not remove mystery from the world. They make mystery harder to fake. What the reports do not prove is just as important. They do not prove extraterrestrial visitors. They do not prove hidden alien materials. They do not prove that all unexplained cases are advanced foreign systems. They do not prove that witnesses are unreliable, or that every report is nonsense. The honest answer is narrower. The reports prove a real investigation problem at the edge of aviation, sensors, national security, public trust, and scientific method. The archive closes with a file still open, but not in the way the Internet wants. The open file is not a promise that the most dramatic answer is waiting behind a black bar. It is a reminder that evidence has weight, and some claims are too heavy for the evidence we have. A UAP report can prove that something was seen, recorded, or treated as a safety concern. With enough metadata, it can also prove that the mystery was a balloon, bird, drone, satellite, aircraft, glare pattern, or geometry effect. But when the data is thin, the report becomes a demand for better questions, not a doorway to any answer we prefer. That may be the most serious conclusion in the whole UFO file. Not belief. Not denial. Discipline. The courage to say, "We do not know yet," and the restraint to keep that sentence from becoming something it cannot support. The sky will keep producing surprises. Humans will keep producing stories. The work of the archive is to keep them separate until evidence can speak.